Hello viewers, it's Lorenzo here, and for those of you that have viewed my shows before, let me completely surprise you. We are on Kerbin, not Earth. We're not playing with real solar system today. No, I have decided that I'm going to do a different series in parallel, or well, it's not so much going to be a series as a series of videos, but don't expect daily updates on this. What I decided to go ahead and do is to try and maximize science gains in a stock career mode. Well, nearest stock as you can tell. I do have the flight engineer here that will give me some data on the active vessel, and I have Kerbal joint reinforcement that makes the ships a little bit more rigid. That's it. No Ferrum Aerospace. I'm playing with the stock aerodynamics. No deadly re-entry, no heating effects, no KSP Interstellar, no fancy solar sails or microwave transmitters. No, just the stock game. And we're going to see how fast we can get, well, as much science as possible. Now, in the beginning of the game, we have just a few parts. Basically, this tank, this engine, this pod, the solid boosters, and things like antennae and the parachutes. Now, I was thinking about how to get the most science as possible with this setup, and I've come up with just this, a big noodle of a rocket. And I'll tell you why, because this rocket has almost no parts apart from fuel tanks and engine and the pod. Its mass ratio is pretty much identical, or as near as it will get anyway, to a ideal rocket made out of fuel and engine. That is, the fuel tanks in the game here have a ratio of 8 units fuel to 1 unit mass, so it's 8 nines fuel and 1 unit mass. Well, you always need one engine, and on this bigger stack of fuel, this pod, which weighs 1 unit, and this parachute, which weighs, I think, 0.2 or something, is almost insignificant. So I get from this stack, and I get about 5 kilometers per second of delta V. I can quadruple this and put it on the sides. That will give me like 100 meters per second of delta V extra. I'm not sure all the mods are playing nice. I just chucked them in a .rar file so they wouldn't be active. But whenever I ask something of the flight engineer, it hicks up the game a little bit. I don't really use it. I don't really need it for this bit of the launch, so I'm just going to not open it anymore. No, in fact, I know what's up. I'm going to fix that and I'll be right back. Right, back here now. I think I had to re-enable the Kerbal toolbar thing so that this might correctly work with that. Nope, it's still hicking up when I ask for displays. Anyway, now I have a way to hide it and not worry about it anymore. The plan for today is, of course, take readings on the pad here. I think I did that already. Yes, I did. And, well, take crew readings basically while flying and while in orbit. We do have the delta V to get to orbit, and it is going to be a polar orbit at that, or at least a jaunt in the polar direction. I am curious whether this is actually the most efficient thing to build. Probably could go bigger and using solid rocket boosters as explosive decouplers. Then again, I don't feel like that's very reliable, so I have to toggle the crew report now. Oh shit, you can only have one crew report active. In that case, review stored data, EVA report, review report, report from the launch, but I can transmit that, but we don't have batteries, of course, so well, while the engine is firing, that is of course fine. I'm going to transmit this as well, and then let's ask for a crew report again, transmit that home also. I was operating under the assumption that EVA reports, which I will be getting from space, are in fact storable in the capsule, so I hope that is actually the case. And also my frame rate is tanking really hard. It shouldn't be like that, so I'm going to once again quit the game and fix that. So I'll be back with you in a bit. It's not off to a smooth start, this series for science. Well, I don't know why the frame rate is so low. I'm just going to suffer through it. Maybe once we get up a little bit higher, it will be better. What I did now to do the install clean of mods, I didn't actually use a separate install because I'm now on Steam and I'm not. Oh, there you go. There is the display of steaminess. I'm now on Steam, so I don't really know if it's possible or feasible to take that folder, copy it, and then have a separate install that way. So what I did is I went into the game data folder where all the mods are, and I took the ones I didn't want to be active and I threw them in a .rar archive. and then deleted the folder. So they basically, for the game, they wouldn't exist. It seems to be fine if I look in the debug console. It doesn't look like something horrible is going on, but still something is going on because, well, the frame rate is lower than it should be. It's a shame we can't do EVA reports here. Jebediah would be swept from the capsule, so yeah, we're not doing that. We're going up very slowly, and of course this is the well, partially to blame to this rocket's awful thrust to weight ratio. There's so much fuel, it's just a big noodle, but also because of the stock Kerbin aerodynamics. They're really not very good, and they're basically applying drag to the whole thing instead of just to the top and maybe the bottom. Still, relative to the real solar system, here we are at 5 kilometers altitude, and we can also already clearly see the curvature of the planet. The moon is very large in the sky, and I think the sun is positively huge. There you go, blazing away. Hey, if I go like this, I have plenty of frame rate. I really should have a look at those oceans, because I think there is a setting somewhere in the configs that I can change, and then they become better. So yeah, let that be a project for the next video. Yeah, if I look at the terrain like this, I get 13 frames per second, and if I do it like this, I get 60. So yeah, that's the difference. Anyway, space begins now at 70 kilometers. So let's have a look at the crew report from here. Is it? Oh, it's flying over Kerbin shores. If I pitch over a little bit sooner, then maybe I can get something else going already. Now I'm getting worried because I had 4 and 5 kilometers per second of delta V, which I think is enough for a Kerbin orbit. I'm already half through my fuel and I'm still very close to the surface. That said, of course, most of the delta V is going to come from the end bit of this stage, this rocket. I made it so large that at the beginning the thrust to weight ratio was a meager 1.07. And now that we're getting some altitude and burning some fuel, that's of course going to improve rather spectacularly. And we really don't need much speed at all. We need about 2 kilometers per second. And we need to do so at an altitude of 70 kilometers, and then we need to save a small amount of fuel to get into the atmosphere again. And once there, we're not worrying ourselves with re-entry or anything stressful like that. So that's all good. Let's have a look if we can't get a crew report from the shores. No, I would like a crew report and EVA reports and everything before the engine burns out, because as soon as we don't have any electricity anymore, then, well, transmitting is out, and then we're just left over to the mercy of, well, what can be stored in the pod and what can't. So, what I want is to get enough science to be able to make at least a moon mission in the next video, and if at all possible, I want to make a moon lander that can hop from biome to biome. And then, of course, I'm going to send that off to MinMax. I forgot that existed for a second. Going to send that off to MinMax and then do biome science there and bring that back, and then that should, well, unlock a whole swath of the tree in one go. So let's have a look here. Upper atmosphere, transmit, wonderful. I'm going to throttle back a little bit because we are accelerating really rapidly and we're almost out of fuel, so I'm going to be thrifty. And, well, the dynamics of Kerbin have eluded me pretty much because I've been playing with the real solar system so much that I'm thinking, well, I'm not even close to orbit yet, but I'm almost halfway there speed-wise. So I should probably throttle back and pitch over, because otherwise I'm just going to shoot very high up into the sky and do nothing else. So yeah. I don't know if EVA reports stack, because I always transmit them, because I always have power, and I'm not going to have power this mission, of course. That would be a bit of a bummer if this first episode in the... Oh, I'm having a phone call. I'll be back in a bit. There, and back again. And what were we doing? Oh yeah, trying to establish orbit, and so that we are in space, and then Jebediah can go outside and do his science things. Look at that frame rate if I stare like this. It seems to be that in the real solar system, at least, that ocean-induced frame rate drop is not that high, but now I'm not sure about that. I'm definitely going to fiddle around with those settings, because I didn't think it would be that big a problem. And maybe that the fact that my big launchers are lagging is not due to my limited processor, but just to that terrain stuff. It never seemed to make a big difference before, so yeah, I don't know. Here we go. Our apoapsis is 86 kilometers. And I'm just going to wait until I'm there in true stock Kerbal style. And then once there, I'm going to do a burn and try and get into orbit. So let's now try and do orbital science things, shall we? A crew report from here. And I shall transmit that, because we are going to do an engine burn later. And after that, I'm going to go outside the capsule and do EVA reports. So EVA, do the report, keep the data, go back inside, and I'm going to see if we can stack those EVA reports. And I think I only really need to unlock decouplers. If I do that, I should be able to make a thing capable of going to the moon, landing there in multiple different locations, so that I can get soil samples from many different places and then, well, basically break the science tree with that. Or, yeah, of course it's going to be MinMax, because there it takes a lot less delta V to get up and get the samples. In fact, you could even just land the lander and then have the Kerbal jet around and do those things. So that's what I'm going to try next, but of course first it will be nice to get an orbit going and to get some science from all the different biomes. So I have some fuel left, and I'm just going to punch it and see if that's in fact 1,000 meters per second worth of fuel. I'm accelerating at 3-4 Gs, so I think it will be. I need to stare at the map view. Oh, it's so easy to get into orbit on Kerbin. It's lovely. You do not try this in the real solar system. You need like 10,000 meters per second of delta V to get into a low orbit. This is nice. This is like being in the kiddie pool, where you can stand up and the water doesn't even reach your ankles. And boy, would it be embarrassing if I didn't make orbit now. So here we go, periapsis of 28 kilometers. So once we're at 115, I can go ahead and well, either circularize. Well, I'm going to circularize that and do that. But let's first fast forward until we are in some new biome, to get, of course, more science, because what I'm here for in a polar orbit is EVA reports of all the different biomes. And it will be quite a while. Yeah, I can rotate the camera like this so we're not staring at the planet, but we have to be staring at the planet to see whether we're over a different biome already. Yeah, great stuff this. And if I ask for a crew report now, is it going to override something? Crew report. Yeah, this is just space near Kerbin. This is not biome specific anymore. And review the stored data. That's the EVA report above Kerbin's water, which is where we are now. So yeah, so I'm going to have to fast forward that until we are at the ice caps. And maybe there's even tundra here as well, so can do multiple biomes. After this one, if I can see whether the EVA reports stack, I'm just going to cut out the video and do the rest off screen, because, well, it's basically just a lot of fast forwarding and looking at the ground. And I'm sure you can do that on your own without me if you are so inclined. So let's have a look here what biome we shall be at. EVA report above Kerbin's water. Oh, it's not transmitted yet, so that doesn't count as a new one. I think though we're over the ice caps, or at least the tundra, so I'm going to fast forward slightly more and see what it says here. Hello Jebediah, go outside and have a look. Ice caps, yeah, keep the data board, and they can stack over one another. Great. So I'm going to do a lot of fast forwarding and biome data collection and all that good stuff. Oh, and I shouldn't forget to actually finish up the orbit, of course, because otherwise we're just going to come crashing back down here to 28, to that periapsis, which is counterproductive if you want to stay in space and have a look at all of the planet. So let's turn. Hey, where's my prograde marker? Oh, this is annoying because I'm on a polar orbit. It doesn't say, it's not here. It's now traveling along the nav ball, and I'm going to have to chase it. It doesn't remain nice and steady on the 180 direction because I'm actually over the pole now. It's flipping around to the 00 direction. It doesn't make a difference. It just makes it confusing to look at the nav ball. That's all. So Yeah, let's build the rocket there. Gee, I designed this so expertly. I have like a few units of fuel left, and I can just circularize my orbit and then have just enough to burn retrograde and come back to the planet. Gee, I'm such a good rocket engineer. Isn't that amazing? Yes, it is. So let's have a look. That should do it. And now it's off to a long string of biome observations, after which I will come back and crash back to the planet, hopefully in one piece. See you after a while. Right, so there we go, a few circles of the planet later, and we have biome reports from over the water, the ice caps, the grasslands, the shores, the highlands, the tundra, the deserts, and the mountain. All worth 8 science points. Of course, we have a crew report that was radioed in from the lower upper atmospheres and space and the ground, and we are probably going to get a soil sample and EVA reports from wherever we land, as long as that is, of course, on land. So we have to try and, well, I said it already, but land on land. And that means that above here, like when we're over the ice caps, I'm just going to burn full retro and put us somewhere on that continent. So that's the maneuver node I'm going to stick with. Fortunately, there's no need to, well, take care of deadly re-entry stuff, re-entry heating. We can just abuse abuse the relative strength and invulnerability of our rocket parts. The only question is, of course, is whether or not we are going to make the landing. It's going to be a little bit dicey with such a long rocket and a parachute on top. I'm hoping to keep some rocket fuel to cushion that blow, and well, if this whole rocket dies, I won't mind. It's just that, of course, the capsule with our brave and proud Jebediah has to live. So locked in the maneuver node, and now it's just a matter of time warping forward until that point. Oh, it won't let me time warp any faster, so we're going to have to wait a few seconds. I'm already thinking about how to spend the science. What I said, I want to get decouplers, if at all possible, of course, the science experiments, maybe a lander leg or two. Anyway, stuff to make a MinMax lander. MinMax is going to be so easy to land on and fly about, that's going to be great. So this maneuver node, we don't need that anymore. So I'm just going to fire up the engine, and I'm going to save 10 units of fuel for a landing cushion. Let's see what this does to our re-entry trajectory. Oh, actually it's not going to put us down here on the land after all. Oh, well, this is definitely going to be on land. So this is good enough. I will see you when we are almost near to the surface, because this rest bit is just boring. So see you then. So there we are coming in for a landing, and it really does look like a toy planet coming down like this. We're at 40 kilometers and heading straight for that mountain range, and we still have some serious speed to shed. I'm just so worried that we're just going to crash full speed into this, but if my memory serves, the KSP stock aerodynamics, they basically slow you down whatever happens. There's no way you're going to get through that soupy lower atmosphere with any speed at all. So even if these mountains stick up quite very high, and I think they do stick up very high, Jesus, we should be fine. Of course, what is and what should be are rarely, if ever, the same. I'm going to pull up my flight engineer and look at the... This thing is definitely broken. Look at the surface display. We're 13 kilometers over the surface. And yeah, we're already slowing down tremendously. That should be fine. I'm doubting whether I should deploy the parachute now or later when I'm closer to the ground. And I am going to go... Well, one thing that is better with the stock Kerbin is that the terrain looks so much nicer. I'm going to go ahead and deploy the parachute now. The terrain looks so much nicer this way because there's more relief. It's incredibly unrealistic in a way, but it sure does look nice, let me just say that. Oh yeah, I want this display up, because then I can fire the rockets while the parachute is going to deploy, which is 500 meters above ground. Another thing, in real life, of course, you would be screwed if you landed over a mountain that you didn't count on. But in KSP, the parachutes helpfully deploy on, not based on air pressure, but on altitude above the ground, which is a crutch for gameplay, but, well, in this case, certainly a very welcome one. So, let me fire the engine just now. Oh, that was that. And now we just have to cross our fingers and hope that the parachute deployment goes off without a hitch. And if that parachute can indeed carry the whole rocket, and it can, without any problems whatsoever. Now, I'm hoping that it won't explode and then drop the parachute, drop the capsule with no parachute, and that will then explode. And to not get that, I'm going to try and swing the rocket, which doesn't work at all. So it's just, once again, fingers crossed, 100 more meters to go. We're coming in at 16 meters per second. I should have saved the fuel for this moment, maybe. Oh, there we go, explosions. And it does seem as though Jebediah is fine. Yeah. He's on a slope, but it does seem as though he's fine. I want to get the capsule. No. Oh, stop it. Doesn't look like that is going anywhere. Ooh, it's the SAS system that's keeping it stable. Now, of course, the question: do I get out and do science and risk the pod exploding, or do I just go ahead and recover that? So, let's do a crew report. Yeah, crew assessment of the situation. Great. That's 1.5 science points. Am I going to risk? I'm going to risk it. It's stationary now. There's some juice in the batteries. Hello, Jebediah. Get out and don't roll down the hill. Oh, stay there. Yeah, take a surface sample. EVA report first. Kerbin's Mountains surface sample. Wonderful. Bring that along, and of course plant the flag. So many sciencers. Great. That is the first exclamation mark, and with that he can go ahead and recover himself, really, and then recover the vessel from the space center. And I have a feeling this is not the most efficient first launch ever done, but it is by far the easiest rocket to build. It's just a big noodle after all, and it's not a big contraption of SRBs exploding all over each other just to... that sounds vaguely dirty. It's not a question of SRBs exploding all over one another to go exotic and exciting places. So this is a very easy way to get a lot of science. So let's recover this vessel. This of course has all the science that we gathered in it, and we now have 106 points to progress with to the R&D building. So let's go ahead and do that and see what we can unlock with that. Remember, we're trying to get to MinMax to hop around that surface as much as we want to get all the science. This is the astronaut building, not the R&D center. So here we go. Well, the first node is already chosen for us. This is the basic rocketry with more tanks and a decoupler. 5 science. I want it. Wonderful. Then we have a small engine, the lander leg, and a parachute. I want that as well. Yeah, I do want this efficient engine. 15 science. And what do we have here? A steerable fuel engine, a big booster, and the separatrons. I think with this I'm already going to be fine, but I want this one as well, the radial decoupler. That will make everything a lot easier. So I'm going to get that, 18 science. And is there any way I can get fuel lines going now? I definitely want... Ooh, no, I want this, the science equipment, obviously, to get science. That's 45 points, and I can get a lot of science with just a Kerbal, from EVA reports around the moon again, and of course surface samples from everywhere. I keep talking about the moon, but I'm going to MinMax. And stuff here, this gives me SAS, which I don't really need. This gives me struts, and I'm going to need struts because the rocket I'm envisioning is quite large. And this is just an engine and a booster. So I'm going to get this, the struts, for sure. And then I have 23 points, and with that I'm going to get this, the engines. So I'm going to go ahead and design a rocket that will bring me back a lot of science from MinMax, and check back for that in the next episode, which will come out whenever I feel like it, because I'm not going to do a schedule for this. Enjoy. This was Lorenzo. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't yet. There will be more videos, either of this variety or a different one. Like, comment, share, all that good stuff. I love it when you do that. See you next time. Goodbye.